So I will tell you what a time it is to be talking about the Colts, huh? I mean, episodes like this are what dreams are made of because let's face it, us Colts fans, we love our quarterbacks, right? I mean, what do you want me to do? It's what we do. We can't help it. And you know, we're going into an offseason where we know, or we think we know, that we're going to finally be getting that guy that leads us into a successful future, or at least the guy that the organization can sell us on that we can ultimately get behind for the next few years and be excited about, right? And I know I just brought in the negativity with that last statement, but listen, teams miss all the time. Just because we drafted Peyton Manning and had Andrew Luck fall into our laps doesn't mean that every young quarterback we get is going to be the savior of this franchise, right? And I don't just bring this up as like a means to let the organization off the hook in case they miss on the pick. In fact, I bring it up to stress the opposite. We cannot miss with this fourth pick this year. Make no mistake, what we see out of the Colts this offseason is going to set up the story for us as an organization going into probably the next, decade or more? And it all starts with this young quarterback that we're expecting to get this offseason, which is why today's discussion is so important. So I'm going to be talking about ranking the rookie quarterbacks. But before I do, if it's your first time here, welcome. Or if you've been here before, welcome back. You're listening to the Riding the Bench Colts cast. This is a podcast made by a Colts fan for Colts fans. I'm your host, Justin Alfiero, recording live, if you can't tell, from my bedroom studio. So if you're a Colts fan looking to help out a Colts fan, shoot the video a like. That goes a long way in making sure that this goes out to more people. Really helps the cause. And if you want to subscribe, I'm going to be here every single week of the offseason. That's my promise to you listening on the other end. So if you're interested in that, you can subscribe. If not, it's quite all right by me. At the end of the day, I'm just making content about the Colts for fun. Obviously, I have aspirations, but realistically, I would just like you to enjoy. So, before I give my rankings, I want to make a couple things clear. Now, of course, you can skip this part right here. I'm going to have everything timestamped, so if you don't want to hear, the context and my disclaimers here, that's totally fine, but I encourage you to listen to them so you're not just completely out of sorts when I'm giving some of my takes, because I assure you there's going to be at least one in here that makes, your brain explode, okay? So, for starters, these rankings are fluid, okay? They're fluid. They can change. The draft is in April. It is, January 25th? So just because I feel this way right now, not that it's going to change drastically, but, these rankings may change. Maybe 5 goes to 3, maybe 1 goes to 3, Point being is that these rankings are not finalized today. This is just how I feel at the moment. And then on top of that, number 2, I feel that before I give these rankings, it's important to understand what I look for when I'm watching tape on a quarterback, right? So, for starters, my most important indicator right off the bat, it's what I've been using for years. Not that I'm some sort of professional scout, but this is what I look at. How does the quarterback look when the going gets tough in the pocket? How does he handle those situations? Does he keep 2 hands on the ball? Does his footwork start to get erratic, right? Does his decision-making start to falter? Or does he stay calm? Is he able to climb the pocket, continue going through those progressions while he's doing it? Is he able to get the ball out quickly? Or does he need to make things happen off script to swing the field as opposed to doing things on schedule within the offense? What about the guy's ball placement, right? Is he consistently on target, hitting guys in stride? Or is he making things more difficult on his receivers or just missing them entirely? The NFL has tighter windows, so some of the throws that are on target in college are maybe interceptions, honestly, in the NFL. And these are all things that I look at when I'm trying to figure out whether a guy is going to translate to the NFL level. I mean, lots of dudes have the talent, the raw talent to do it. There's lots of great arms out there. The question, though, becomes how much will the habits that they've developed in college either help them or hurt them in the pros? Because even with great coaching, bad habits are hard to unlearn. So, without further ado, here we are. Let's get into it. My number 5 ranked quarterback, Hendon Hooker. And I'm going to tell you right now, this one was tough because I was between Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee and Anthony Richardson out of Florida, who I know is climbing up draft boards as we speak. This is a tough spot, and I feel it's important to talk about them both. So I'm going to start with Hooker because he is my number 5. When you go off of the tape alone with Hooker, it looks entirely possible that Hooker may be one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in this draft class when it comes to how he's going to be on day 1 of his rookie season. Now, of course, the 2 things with him are his age and that ACL injury that he's coming off of. You know, for all the flack that a guy like Stetson Bennett, who's a 2-time national champion, has been getting about his age, you have Hooker in the same exact spot, and I don't hear anyone talking about it. I mean, and here's the thing is that even though 25 isn't technically that old, this is a whole-ass rookie contract older than some of the other guys that are getting drafted, particularly Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, both 21 each. So the question with Hooker is very simple. It becomes, how much do you think it matters? And when I say it, I mean his age. The way that you answer that question ultimately dictates where you're going to have Hooker ranked. Because again, age aside, Hooker maybe has the best tape of any quarterback in this draft. And if you need any evidence at all whatsoever, if you're not with me here, just go watch his game against Alabama earlier this season. If you come out of that game with any questions about this guy's ability to play at an NFL level, I mean, I just don't know what to tell you. So that's Hooker. And then quickly, before I get into number 4, I want to talk about Richardson because he's just on the outside looking into my top 5. But I feel like I need to talk about him because, you know, people really love him. I just want to make sure that I recognize him. Richardson, AR-15, right, is so hard for me to evaluate. When I'm watching him, I get it. I see the arm talent, the mobility, the toughness, right? I see how that upside happens. I see the path to him being a big-time NFL quarterback. I totally get it. It's not like I don't think he can play. But I'll tell you, as an NFL team, upside is a very, very dangerous game to play. I mean, for every Josh Allen out of Wyoming, there's about 10 more Zach Wilsons out of BYU, right? And the thing is, you're just not sure which one you're going to get. And when I watch Richardson right now, that ball placement is just not at an NFL level at this particular moment. And in my opinion, if you're starting a guy like Richardson on day 1, you're going to end up severely limited as an offense, at least at minimum, passing the ball. And that's not to say he can't get there, but the question becomes, if he is to get exposed early as a passer, is that something that he'll be able to bounce back from on a confidence level? Some guys can, some guys can't. Or is he going to crumble under that pressure? And now me asking that question isn't taking a side at all. It's simply just laying out the risk that comes with Anthony Richardson. And you just really have to account for both sides, which is ultimately why I have him right outside of my top 5, all right? So now, my number 4 quarterback, Bryce Young. I know. Your head almost just fucking exploded, okay? I don't know what you want me to tell you. I have tried incredibly hard to convince myself that Bryce Young is going to be a great NFL quarterback. And no matter how hard I try, I'm going to tell you right now, I am just not sold on him. But here's what I like about Bryce, all right? So let me give him some credit. His ability to extend plays is obviously something that anybody could marvel at. And of course, here in Indianapolis, we'd love to see, especially after what we got out of our quarterback room this past season. I mean, when he's able to get out of the pocket and buy himself some extra time, he could really make some big-time plays. His accuracy down the field looks pretty nice, too, and I don't really have any major gripes about how he's able to push the ball down the field. Where the problems start for me is with what I've watched from him so far, which figures probably about 5 or 6 games in their entirety, every single snap. I haven't quite seen Bryce Young make the easy plays look easy. His work in the short and intermediate passing game, for me, is suspect. particularly in situations where he's forced to stay in the pocket under duress, as opposed to being given the opportunity to scramble out to his right or to his left. The footwork just looks like it breaks down when it comes to, pressure in the pocket. And just a bit more often when you see him in those situations, he just ends up looking like a guy who's painfully average at best. And if you need an example right here, you can check out his game against LSU. Listen, in college, a game like Bama versus LSU is, unless someone, maybe I'm wrong here, by the way. If anyone knows like a shit ton about football, let me know, because I might be wrong. To me, I've always taken it, when you look at an Alabama and an LSU, that is as close to an NFL look as you are going to get with a player, right? You have two of the most talented teams in college, so it's not like a mismatch on either end, which is what happens sometimes in college, and both of them have big-time defenses. So when you take how he played in that game, and you couple it with his size, I just wonder what the path is to him being super successful within the pocket early in his career. That's not to say it can't happen, because Bryce looks like he has good character. His teammates like him. Seems like a humble guy. Seems like he works hard. So I'm not questioning his willingness to work towards it. But, I don't exactly view him to be nearly as talented as, let's say, a Kyler Murray, who's struggling with exactly what it is that I'm talking about right now, that I see Bryce struggling with at the college level. And guys, it's one thing to be able to make a play off script. But what about making a play on script? It's nice to be able to go to a plan B, but before there's a plan B, there's a plan A, and it's called the play that was called. And can you execute that play consistently? And are you able to get to reads 2, 3, and 4 before aborting plan A to go to plan B? And that is what I need to see out of Bryce Young before I can truly get behind him as a franchise QB. So here it is, already with my number 4 quarterback, already what some would call a hot take, right? But for me, it's just how I feel. So now number 3, Will Levis. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking. How can you possibly have Will Levis above Bryce Young? Have you seen their numbers, right? Have you seen what they've accomplished in college? Have you seen their accolades? Yes, I have. But here's the thing, and I know I'm about to lose a lot of you when I say this. You ready for this? Numbers don't matter. Wins don't matter. And I'm talking about the college level. What matters are the tools that the guy has and how they're going to translate to the NFL level. And to provide some examples of this, Pat Mahomes, right off the bat, he was like a 5-7, 7-5 quarterback in college, right? He wasn't out there winning national titles. The same could be said about guys like Josh Allen and Justin Herbert and even Brock Purdy right now, right? I mean, Mr. Irrelevant. I don't know how many times we need to see this type of story play out before we acknowledge the reality that evaluating college players is almost primarily, in my opinion, about the eye test. Not about their accomplishments, not about their accolades. You actually have to watch them. Now, all of that being said, every single thing I said about Bryce Young before and how he handles himself in the pocket can be applied to Will Levis as well. Feels like just about every game I've watched out of Will Levis, I see him making at least one decision under pressure in the pocket that either 1, results in a turnover, or 2, should or could result in a turnover. All of that being said, when I compare him to Bryce Young, I see a guy that's stronger in the pocket, more willing to stand in, take a hit. Bryce Young will kind of skip the ball, right? When he's under pressure, Will Levis is going to take that hit and still throw that dart, and whether or not it's on target, at least it's in the air, ready to be caught, right? Obviously, he's bigger in terms of his stature and his size. And then for me, it's just better arm talent as well, if I'm to be 100% honest with you. So it's still not a guy in Will Levis that I'm 100% sure is going to be good on day one. But at the same time, his tape reminds me so much of what I saw out of Justin Herbert, who, full disclosure, I was not too high on out of college, that I kind of almost find myself giving Levis the nod here as to somewhat, I don't know, make up, right my wrongs for Justin Herbert, if you will. All right. So that's number 3. Number 2. You ready for this? The second best quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft is Tanner McKee. Now, please, hold on. Don't shut off the show yet, okay? Please, just hear me out, okay? Obviously, I know I'm going out on a limb here, okay? But humor me, will you? When you talk about skills that translate to being a great NFL quarterback, Tanner McKee checks a lot of boxes. He's tall. He's precise. He gets through his progressions as good as any quarterback in college football. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not a huge stat guy. But while I was kind of preparing for this episode, I saw a stat that just fully encapsulates what I see with Tanner McKee. You know that his career time to throw, which means the time that the ball is in his hands from the snap to when it's out of his hands for college, is like 2.5 seconds, which for those of you who don't know, is stupendous. And quite frankly, he's able to move just a tad bit better than he gets credit for. Now, I'll admit, everything I see from Tanner McKee, all the things I just stated, are far more evident in his 2021 tape than his 2022 tape. But I simply can just not ignore what I saw in that 2021 tape. And even if you look at this year, his game against Syracuse, he shows quite a bit of his as well. I mean, when you take into account a team like Stanford is not only not as talented as Ohio State or Alabama, but that your brain has to be so big to go to Stanford that like nobody can even get into the school. I mean, it's just hard to find people that are elite both athletically and academically. Being great at both of those things, or just one of those things, takes a ton of effort. And then on top of that, now you have college players getting paid, and Stanford is in a spot where they literally, from a talent level, just can't compete with these bigger schools. Now, why is that important? Why do I bring that up? Well, one, when you evaluate Tanner McKee, you have to watch him with the perspective of, what if this guy were playing at Ohio State? What if this guy was playing at Alabama, who he was recruited by, okay? This isn't some nobody. I know a lot of you guys see, like, what were they, like 3-9 this season or some crap like that? And you see that and you think he's some sort of bum. This is not some nobody, okay? Tanner McKee was a big-time, highly touted quarterback prospect coming out of high school. And that's not me saying that. I'm talking about the scouts, the people that know more than me. This was a guy that was a 4 or 5-star talent who made the decision to go to a less talented school. And then on top of that, number two, why I bring that up, is there's something to be said about a guy that has already struggled in college. A lot of these top quarterback prospects go from being the best player on their high school team by a mile, a man amongst boys, to then committing to a big-time college that ends up being one of the most talented teams in college football. So between high school and college, they've always been on top. They've always either been the most talented guy in the room or had more talent than 90% of their competition, or both. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're an early first-round pick, which generally are relegated to teams that, in the words of Chris Ballard, earn them. So all of a sudden, for the first time in their life, they're at a real significant disadvantage for the first time in their playing career. But when you have a guy like Tanner that fits the mold of an NFL QB and has already played in a pro-style offense with a team that was struggled and had a deficit for talent, you wonder how much that type of thing is going to help his transition to the league. And I'll tell you, I'm absolutely intrigued by it. So Tanner McKee is my number two, and I'm honestly, just off of conventional wisdom, maybe not even making him my number one, but I'm close. I am close. Number one, I'll bring the temperature down a little bit. My number one quarterback is CJ Stroud. Now, can we stop talking about other Ohio State quarterbacks not panning out in the NFL as some sort of way to dismiss what is wildly clear to the human eye when you watch CJ Stroud? There is no quarterback that Ohio State has had that I can remember that was even close to as good of an NFL prospect as CJ Stroud was. I mean, to say Ohio State quarterbacks stink, I don't want to just dismiss you, but it's like a very, very lazy take. I mean, go ahead. Tell me who out of Ohio State was even close to as good of a quarterback prospect as he was. Tell me. Go. 3, 2, 1. Anything? Troy Smith? Terrell Pryor? About JT Barrett? Not throw any shade at any of those guys for no reason, but when compared to CJ Stroud, come on now. Come on now, guys. You know better than that. You know better than that. And now for a moment, let's just put aside the talent that Stroud has played with, right? CJ Stroud puts the ball in places where other quarterbacks simply cannot. Plain and simple. He's mobile enough to create space in the pocket or escape the pocket, but is still a pass-first guy. And I'm going to tell you right now, full disclosure, that's always going to be my cup of tea, my flavor of ice cream. I can't help it. It's what I like. I think it ages better. I think when you have a guy that's run first, you don't have the same hopes of him being at the same level when he's 37 and 38 and so on and so forth, right? So Stroud has shown an ability to climb up the pocket while continuing to remain calm and go through his progressions while navigating that traffic. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's like one of the number one indicators I look for, as I said at the top of the show. And of course, that drive, that's what should have been a game-winning drive against Georgia, doesn't hurt him either. All right. So that's it, guys. You made it, okay? Those are my rookie rankings. To sum it up, number 5, Hendon Hooker. We have Anthony Richardson on the outside, just looking in at number 6. Number 4, Bryce Young. Number 3, Will Levis. Number 2, the great and powerful Tanner McKee. And number 1, C.J. Stroud. Okay, so with that, now that you've heard my rankings, I'm sure you disagree in plenty of spots, I want to hear your rankings. So please toss them in the comments. And of course, at this point, if you made it this far, you can't hate this that much, right? The episode had to be like halfway decent to you. So again, I told you, I'm going to be here every single week this offseason. I promise. That's not just me bullshitting you. So if you want to see me, again, going forward, you want to be notified at least once a week, subscribe so you could get notified when that happens. Again, shoot the video a like if you're here. It's going to help me out, right? And then on Instagram, at The Riding the Bench Podcast with a K instead of a C in the word podcast. Why is that a K? Because with a C was like already taken by someone who made a podcast like 5-6 years ago, and now they don't have one anymore. Point being, that's how you could help me out. That's how you could, stay up to date. And now I'm just rambling here at the end of the episode, you see. And if there's one more thing, if you've done all those things already and you're looking for another way to help out the show, if you could just share this with one friend, just one, that loves the Colts as much as you do, as much as I do, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But until next time, those are my rookie QB rankings, and you just listen to the Riding the Bench Colts cast. Peace out, Colts Nation.